The crack of a whip was the first thing Jess Morgan heard, and it was a sound that would reroute the course of 2 shattered lives. For a man whose soul was as scarred as the canyon lands, Jess had come to Redemption Bend chasing only a ghost, the rumor of a stolen army payroll. He didn't expect to find a ghost of himself in the eyes of a girl who had forgotten how to flinch. Her name was Elira. At 17, her mixed Cheyenne and settler blood marked her as an outsider in the town that exploited her. Jess watched from the dusty street as Silas Rourke, the mercantile owner, brought a leather cord down across her shoulders. She didn't scream. She absorbed the violence with a stillness that spoke of years of practice, her gaze fixed on a distant point only she could see. Some souls are tempered by fire, not broken by it. Jess's hand, calloused from reins and rifle, settled on the worn grip of his Remington. 5 years as a tracker for the Union had taught him to steer clear of other people's troubles. His own were a heavy enough burden. But the girl's silent defiance was a mirror, reflecting the stubborn pride of a woman he'd once failed to protect. His sister, taken by fever while he was off chasing glory. Walking away now would be a betrayal of her memory. Inside the clapboard store, Elira swept up shattered porcelain. Her movements were efficient, minimized to avoid further notice. A simple beaded bracelet, the color of the summer sky, circled her wrist. It was all she had left of her mother. Rourke loomed, a man shaped by greed and casual cruelty. That came clear from St. Louis, girl. You'll work off every cent. Rourke turned, his bluster fading as he took in the stranger framed in the doorway. Jess wasn't a large man, but he carried a quiet density, the kind that made rooms feel smaller. His eyes, the gray of a winter river, didn't judge the scene, they catalogued it. The raised quirt, the girl's tense posture, the ledger of power written in dust motes in fear. Business concluded? Jess's voice was low, devoid of heat. Domestic matter, Rourke sneered, recovering. None of yours. Jess's gaze held Elira's for a heartbeat. He saw not a victim, but a survivor. A spark waiting for kindling. He simply nodded, as if filing the information away, and let the door swing shut behind him. That night, in the cramped bunkhouse, Jess learned the town's shameful secret. Elira's father, a Cheyenne scout, had saved Rourke's life in a blizzard. In return, Rourke took the orphan girl as indentured help, a debt the town sheriff was paid too well to ever question. She's proud, that one, the old liveryman muttered. Too proud to run, and this town's too cowardly to help. Dawn found Jess in the high brakes, tracking the payroll thief. What he discovered instead was a network of stolen cattle being funneled through Rourke's back acres. The merchant's cruelty was funded by a deeper, wider corruption. Meanwhile, in her tiny attic room, Elira traced the beads on her bracelet. She whispered a prayer for strength, one her mother taught her when the world felt too large. Then she looked out and saw Jess Morgan returning to town, his posture that of a man who has finished weighing a decision. High sun baked the mud of Redemption Bend when Jess stepped back into Rourke's mercantile. This time, he led a bound prisoner, the payroll thief, and the air in the room shifted from mundane to charged. Elira stood behind the counter, her hands pausing over a stack of dry goods. She watched this enigmatic man, a force of nature she couldn't predict. I understand you hold a contract, Jess stated, his eyes on Rourke. What's it to you? Rourke blustered, chest puffing. I'm settling it. Name your price for her papers. The store fell silent. A small crowd gathered outside the window. She's not for sale, Rourke spat. Everything has a price, Jess replied, taking a single step forward. Yours is either the gold in my pocket or the lead in my gun. Choose. Rourke's eyes darted to the bound man, then to the hard certainty in Jess's face. $500, he demanded, a last grasp for control. Jess didn't reach for coin. He drew a folded document from his coat. Federal magistrate in Laramie says debt peonage is illegal in this territory. Your contract is worthless. And your friend here has some interesting things to say about your cattle operation. Before Rourke could sputter a reply, Elira moved. From her sleeve, she produced a slender skinning knife, its edge honed to a whisper. She placed herself not behind Jess, but beside him. "My freedom was never yours to sell," she said, her voice clear as creek water. Rourke paled, seeing his dominion crumble in the resolve of two people who refused to be afraid. 2 hours later, Redemption Bend witnessed an exodus. Elira, on a borrowed paint mare, riding past the silent, shame-faced town. Jess beside her, the tide rustler in tow. Rourke stood on his porch, impotent rage twisting his features as the sheriff found sudden, convenient business elsewhere. They rode until the town was a smudge on the horizon. The prairie opened before them, vast and indifferent. "You didn't owe me anything," Elira finally said, the wind carrying her words. "I know," Jess replied. "Then why?" He was quiet for a long mile. "I had a sister. I left her to chase a dream that turned to dust. By the time I returned, she was gone. I've been carrying the weight of that too late ever since." He looked at her, his guard down for the first time. "Today, I decided to be on time." They made camp by a stand of aspens. Elira washed the grime of Redemption Bend from her skin in the cold stream. Jess tended the fire, giving her space, yet hyper-aware of her presence. She was like the land itself, beautiful, resilient, shaped by harsh forces. "Where will you go?" he asked as the flames danced. "The Northern Cheyenne Agency. My mother's people." "And after that?" "That," she said, meeting his eyes, "is a story I haven't written yet." He nodded. "The territory is full of blank pages." The fire died to embers. The night grew deep. Elira shifted closer to the warmth. "I used to imagine what safety felt like," she murmured, almost to herself. "It's not a place," Jess said, his voice rough. "It's a moment. And then another. You build it like a wall, one stone at a time." She leaned her head against his shoulder. For Jess, the gnawing emptiness inside him didn't fill, but it quieted, making room for a new, fragile sensation. Hope. They reached the agency at week's end. Elira was greeted by her cousin, Tall Bear, whose wary eyes sized up Jess. "Did he buy your life?" he asked bluntly. "He helped me reclaim it," Elira answered, her tone leaving no room for debate. Jess stood before the council of elders. An old man named Walks with Son studied him. "Why does a lone wolf walk with our daughter?" Jess kept his words plain. "To ensure she reaches her chosen den. Where that is her choice alone." The elder saw the truth in his eyes. "Stay 3 days. Then you go. She decides her path." On the third morning, Jess found Elira by a willow grove. She had braved sage into her hair, a sign of grounding. "You're staying," he said. It wasn't a question. "For now," she replied. "I need to remember who I was before the whip. I can't step into a new life carrying the old one like a shackle." She looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "And you can't fix your past by saving me. Give me a season. Let the truth of what we are settle like river silt." He left at first light, the ache in his chest a familiar, yet different, companion. Elira watched from the ridge, her heart a territory divided. 6 months passed. A single letter arrived at the agency, with no return address. It contained a hand-drawn map to a small homestead near the Powder River, and 5 words, asterisk a corner of the world. "Yours if you want it, asterisk." Elira folded the map into her bracelet pouch. She felt its promise with every step. The turning of a year brought a soft spring. Elira saddled her horse. She had rebuilt her spirit among her people. Now, a different wind called. The ride was a meditation. With each mile, the girl who endured faded, and the woman who chose grew stronger. She found the homestead as the sun bled gold over the western hills. A modest cabin, a corral with good horses, a garden plot waiting for seed. It was a place built not on grandeur, but on quiet intention. Jess stepped onto the porch. He looked leaner, the perpetual storm in his eyes calmed to a watchful stillness. He didn't speak, just waited. She dismounted. "I wasn't sure I'd come." "I wasn't sure you'd want to," he said. The map didn't say want. It said yours. Those are different things. A slow smile touched his lips. They are. He showed her the cabin. It was simple, solid. On the mantel sat a single, faded daguerreotype of a young woman, his sister. Alira saw it and understood. Some griefs are silent tenants in a house of joy. Why build all this, she asked. Because a man should build something that outlasts his regrets, he said. A place that can hold a future, not just a past. That evening, they walked the ridgeline as twilight painted the sky in violets and deep blues. A hawk circled on a thermal. I'm not here for shelter, Alira said, stopping. I'm here for partnership. To stand beside someone, not behind them. I know, Jess said. I built the fence posts. You'll decide what grows inside them. She reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers, strong and sure. The last of the old walls crumbled, not with a crash, but with a sigh. Back on the porch, under a ceiling of emerging stars, the silence between them was comfortable, full. Are you staying? He asked, the question hanging in the cool air. Alira touched her beaded bracelet, then let her hand fall. I'm home, she said. Jess pulled her close, not as a savior or a saved soul, but as two weathered trails finally merging into one path. And in the vast, forgiving quiet of the frontier, two incomplete stories began writing a single, whole new chapter. Before you go, if this tale of resilience and redemption found a home with you, do me a solid, hit that like button. It truly helps the channel, Winds of Thought, bring more stories like this to light. Thank you for watching.